Hey everyone, welcome into One Resource Floating. I am the 86. Thank you guys for joining us this week. Down below in our comments, you will find the link to the Discord, which you can join and have fun conversations. Also, you'll see a bell and a subscribe button. Feel free to click those. That would be great and help out the channel a ton. Thank you guys very much and hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome in to One Resource Floating. This is the 86, and I'm joined by this other person here.
I'm Ogar. What's up?
And we are featuring here my messy desk and Ogar's cleaner space. But we're going to talk a little bit about how to play online and going through that. As you'll see, this is a webcam setup. This is pretty intuitive. You literally just, boom, here's your play mat. Go through it, draw, talk to your opponent. Hey, Ogar, how are you?
Yeah. I really prefer webcam. I like the idea of having the physical cards. I can shuffle my cards. I can draw cards. I can, set them down in the combat chain. I can move them from zone to zone. And just, I can do things like putting counters on my equipment. I feel like one of my biggest struggles when I get to, say, a competitive event is um, I'm so focused on, being in a new place, being around a bunch of people, having, the anxiety of, wanting to do well in your games. And, if you are on a good record, you want to keep going. If you started a little rough, you got the stress of trying to turn it around. There's like so many things happening at, these big in-person events that I don't want to add to that by also having to translate everything I learned from playing my deck on, you know, digital clients and have to then also translate that all to playing with physical cards because as we all know, and there are multiple digital clients that we can discuss, but for me, like ticking counters on there and rolling dice and moving your blocking with equipment or whatever, there's like so many aspects of the game that are different when you're using those clients, so I don't want to have to worry about that difference being something that is getting in my way at a live in-person event. So even if I'm going to play online, I'd rather play with webcam so I have that like um, tactile feel and that seamlessly transitions to those bigger in-person events.
As you'll see, this just goes right on down on the play mat. We both have a full play mat in view. We can shuffle cards on stream so the other person can see it. You can ask someone to cut, so you can keep the integrity going. Everything can as well be visible and done on screen. Draw, and then I can keep my cards. I usually will keep my cards off screen rather than keep them on screen. So that can be a little bit different, but everything I'm going to play, I'll play, and then if I do an attack, it just goes right how it would be, and that goes to the turn. Some things with going into webcam or online play. How do you find someone? Well, you have friends. That's a good start. Make some friends. Go out, say hello to some people, say hello to your neighbors. Say, hey, do you play Flesh and Blood? If they say no, try going with someone else. You can also find people at your armories because sometimes, some of us are introverts and we don't like to leave our homes. And
I can't imagine who that might be.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely not me.
But that could be something that, if you have kids and it's hard to get out and it's just like, oh, I have all these responsibilities, there's always something going on. Play online. Just set up, play an hour, done. You're not driving to some place to play for 3 hours, driving back. And I never want to dissuade anyone from driving to an armory because that's king right now. If you drive and play in a Swiss event with 8 or more people, even less than that, great, do it. If you have the chance, you can get out. I encourage that wholeheartedly, but some of us can't always get out, so this is an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you can make friends with, people that you know in real life, like in your day to day life, in your work life, or your family, or whatever the case may be. high school friends, whatever. Or you can also, like you said, meet people at the local game shop. The other thing that you can do is, honestly, like if you watch, content creators on YouTube, if you watch the videos, gameplay videos, or meta breakdowns, tier lists, any of those types of things, a lot of those content creators are going to link you to their communities that they're active in. And that is a good way that you could potentially find online communities, like say on Discord being a really great place to go, in my opinion. It was there's a smaller YouTube channel that I was watching when I very first started playing Flesh and Blood called Just Add Misplay, and he had a link to the Tavern Discord server in one of his, or I'm sure in a bunch of his videos. I noticed it in one of his videos. I clicked the link and joined the server, and that is where I found kind of my home in the Flesh and Blood, the broader Flesh and Blood community. I felt that the Tavern was the place that most closely fit the way that I want to interact with other people, the way that I think about the game, the types of conversations I want to have, etc. So, I mean, just something simple like clicking a link in a YouTube video description can bring you to a community that you can make new friends, you can learn how to play better, you can find ways to improve your deck, you can help other people get better if you're someone who's knowledgeable and competent, any of those types of things. There's so many of those aspects where just a little bit of looking, you can find something that's really, really helpful, and like I said, leads you to a community that you can feel at home in. And yeah, I mean, being able to get home from work for myself, relax a bit, and then hop online and play some games is a lot easier than, driving an hour or so each way to try to go to a store and find some people to play with.
Yeah. So those are all the pros on webcam games. We talked about making some friends. Tavern Brawlers has a Discord. They have a community there. You can jump on and find some games. There's a global Flesh and Blood Discord server that you can join, and they actually have a spot for looking for webcam games. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy, capiche, all done, yada yada yada, all the good words. But guess what? Just like everything, there is a barrier to entry. So let's talk about what those barriers are. Hey everyone, welcome into my room. Sorry, I don't have the green screen up, so the light is kind of annoying right there. So apologize for that. But just going to show you what I have. I have this fancy stand from Amazon that was like 10 or 20 bucks. And then I have a webcam that just sits perched on this. It's aimed straight down at my playmat. The webcam I think I got from Costco on a Black Friday deal. But you could probably get a cheap webcam that's like 20 bucks, and this whole rig probably costs you anywhere from 30 to more dollars. You can also use programs if you don't have a webcam, you're not interested in spending the money on a webcam. There are some that turn your phone into a webcam, so you can actually stream your phone to a screen on your computer. I know IRIUN is a program that does that. Do you know of any others, Ogar, or any other setups?
DroidCam is a great one. And I know people think DroidCam means that it only works on Androids, but that's not the case. It does work with iPhones and things like that. So DroidCam is a great way to basically just download the app on your phone, download the program on your computer, sync them up to each other. I think you just have to connect them to the same Wi-Fi network or whatever, and there's like a setting where you can basically make them see each other, and then that will make it so that when you're in Discord or on whatever program, you can select your phone as your webcam option, turn it on, and then it just utilizes the camera in your phone. And some people will literally just like stack up boxes of bulk or something, or deck boxes, and set their phone on top of that, or like stack a couple chairs on top of each other next to your desk and set your phone on that and put something on the phone so it doesn't fall off the chair, and now your phone is looking down at your playmat area. I mean, it really doesn't have to be anything fancy. I probably have about $60 into my webcam setup, and that was me kind of splurging and going a little spendier than I needed to. But I mean, if you want to spend $1,000 on a super sweet webcam and some programs and a stand and all kinds of fancy stuff, you can do it. If you want to do it for $6, you can do that, and anything in between. So I mean, that's the only other thing as far as like a barrier to entry for playing on webcam is if you are a newer player, the one thing is it does require that you have the cards or have high quality proxies. So that is one of the downfalls of playing on webcam, in my opinion, is that if you are a brand new player, you don't know what hero you want to play, you don't know what deck list you want to run, and you know you're just going to go buy singles for your deck. You don't necessarily want to order all the singles off of TCG Player and then get them in the mail and find out in half an hour after you get them and put your deck together that you don't like how the deck plays, and now you have to go buy a bunch of other singles to rebuild your deck. So that is one of the downsides, but other than that, I think webcam is basically all upside.
I'm a big fan of webcam, of all the ways to play. That's the way I would prefer to play. But there are some others. The one thing I will say is it's really helpful to be on voice, because some people, like, I have my play. So this is my computer right in front of me here, but I have my player area here. So I turn to the side when I'm playing, and I'll glance at the screen to make everything happen, to ensure that everything's moving along. My opponent's playing what they say they're going to play, and that my videos could still go on. So in that case, it's really helpful to have voice, and it's really easy to, like, when someone plays a card, like, you see what it is. Like, for someone who's played a little bit, like, you know what a bolt and shot looks like. And someone plays a bolt and shot down, and you're like, yep, that's bolt and shot art. Or you.
Well, and you can even get to a point where your comfort level is such that your opponent is the moron who forgets to turn their camera on, and you play the entire game just based on them declaring what cards they're playing.
Yeah.
Not that either of us has ever been in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, when you're playing on webcam, you're not necessarily going to be able to read the text on every single card your opponent plays. But as you said, like, I know what the art on Ice Eternal looks like from 10, 20 feet away. I'm going to be able to tell that's what you're laying down. I'm going to, any of the equipment, we know what Snapdragon Scalers or Voltaire looks like, Death Dealer. I'm going to be able to tell as soon as you reveal what it is, what your equipment and weapon loadout is, etc. So yeah, there's not too much of a problem there.
Yep. Things that are encouraged on online play. If you're wondering about someone's graveyard, or like what they've played, like, ask, hey, how many Ardvors are in your graveyard? How many Rain Razors? How many Three of a Kinds, etc. Or how many attack actions? Like, you can ask this question: is like, what cards are in your Banish Zone? If you're playing against the Leviah, hey, what cards do you have in there that aren't 6 power? How many cards total? How many cards there aren't? You can go through that to make sure that it's just like playing next to someone. But yeah, as far as other things to get, I see on Amazon they're like those squid tripods for your phone, like the octopus ones. They suck, but they work. I hate using them. I used one for a little while, but just because they're flimsy and they fall apart after a little while. So, like, the stand that I have will probably last, like, I'm assuming 5 years, and I won't think anything of it. Those little octopus stands will probably last for like maybe a year or two, and they'll start to fall apart just from where you adjust them too much. And I think Ogar was saying that, like, too, like, sometimes boxes set up. I've seen people make stands out of Lego towers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lincoln
Logs. Exactly.
I was a Lincoln Log kid.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name. Connects. That's the thing I was trying to think of. But yeah, I mean, like, any of that stuff is a viable option. And like you said, and the point I was making earlier, webcam play is the closest you're going to get to what it's like to play in person. And for me, there's very little difference between playing on webcam versus playing in person. And that's one of the things that I really like about it. But of course, that doesn't mean it's the only way to play.
Actually, Ogar, it is the only way to play. Just kidding. We have more. So let's zip right to it. All right, we're going to move on to the next segment of how to play online with a thing that a lot of people like. It's not as good as webcam. It's my second favorite out of the 3 that we'll talk about today, but it is Tabletop Simulator. And to use Tabletop Simulator, You don't have to, but it helps to be familiar with the Flesh and Blood database. So if you go right in your browser to fabdb.net, I'm assuming that you'll have a deck built. You can go to click Decks, My Deck. You can click New Deck to make what you want. It's pretty simple, easy to do. You'll need this for the next thing we're going to talk about too, but you just choose your hero. Let's say that I'm going to build a Shiana. So I just click on that, and then I click what cards I want in Shiana. Definitely want an Arknight Shard, and I'm not really going to bother building this deck because I already have one that I am going to use. So talking through the database on how to make a deck. So you selected your hero on the last page. We already did that. Okay. So editing the deck is just simple searching for things up in the search bar that you want to put in the deck. So let's say you want a lesson in lava in the deck. So type lesson in, and then lesson in lava is going to show up. Since Shiana is a blitz hero, unfortunately we don't have her constructed yet. One day, you just select 2 lesson lavas, build your deck out. It'll tell you how many cards you have total, and then you'll click on settings and save it. I'm going to use this Lexi deck that I am partial to. So with using Lexi, after you save it, to use it in Tabletop Simulator, we're first going to go to Export, and then Link to Deck. And that's all you need to do for here. All right, back here with Ogar in Tabletop Simulator. You see Ogar just pressed a button and made a bunch of cards show up. Wow, that's crazy. How did he do that? We're going to talk about how to do that right now. So you're going to see as he's pulling those off there, he's getting everything set up. There are playmats here. There actually is a little button here where you can change your playmat and what you want. It's up here. I think click on lock and then you can cycle through. But on the database where we just click that link, so we just go right into this little bar right here in the corner. Control V, so we copy paste it. There's this little button here that says FabDB, and you spawn your deck. So sideboard here, bam. Don't need the sideboard. I'm just going to use the main deck against this Briar. My hero's all flipped over. I'm going to use Lexi. I only have 1 weapon, and in my equipment, 2, 3, and 4. Other equipment would be in my sideboard since I have it selected in my sideboard on the database. So right here, there are a few key things to notice. R, for example, shuffles. If you have dice, R rolls the die. Q and E are going to turn things if you need to tap something, which Flesh and Blood doesn't really have a tap mechanic, but in case you do want to turn something to the side to show that you used it, Q and E. Those are also going to be reflected by up here. You'll see the rotation is 90 degrees. You can click on that to change how your card rotates about. Right in here are objects. You can go into components and get a lot of things, but I think everything is right here to the side with dice, counters, tokens, and everything we would need. Ogar, what did I forget? What do you like about TTS?
I think the biggest advantage of digital clients like TTS is just the flexibility. That's kind of what I was just referencing earlier. And it's true both for new players, as I was talking about earlier, but also for a player who maybe is testing for a big event, is trying to build a deck from the ground up, test as much as possible, and make many, many changes in order to have as many different options, try out as many different options as possible. So the great thing about it is if you have that deck list like we were looking at earlier, where you go on to fabdb.net or you go to Fabrary, or there's different websites where you can build a Flesh and Blood deck, you can make a really quick change in 3 seconds on that website, copy the link, slap it into your tabletop simulator, and load the deck in and bring that new version of the deck in basically instantaneously, which is much easier than if I was to like I said, if you're a new player and you don't own every card, Sometimes changing your deck list means waiting a week for a card that you ordered off a TCG player to get delivered. Whereas with something like TTS, it's waiting a few seconds just to be able to make the change, load the new deck into TTS, and um, plop it down on your playmat and get to playing. So I think that flexibility is a really big advantage for something like TTS. Um, and then also, similarly, it just opens up options for people who maybe don't have the space or things like that to set up, a webcam game, or people who travel a lot. I've played with some people who, travel for work, or maybe they go on vacation to go visit family. You might not be able to, set up a webcam in your mom's basement, when you go to visit her, but that doesn't mean that you can't, have your laptop or a computer of some sort and hop on TTS and still get some reps in if you still have, if you still want to get some games, you have some downtime that you want to play. It just provides you a flexible option to be able to do that. And then the other really nice thing about a client like TTS is when someone will lay down a card, right? And that ability to hover over it and click or press
Alt.
Alt, now I get to see a big version of that card. I can even scroll the scroll wheel on my mouse to make it even bigger and get this massive version of the card. So I'm not relying on what we were talking about with webcam, where it's kind of like, well, I know what bolt and shot looks like, so when somebody plays it down, I know that that's what they're really doing, and they're telling me that's what they're doing, so I know that's what's happening. Well, here, I mean, you can see the card bigger than real life. Like, you could see a massive version of the card, read it to your heart's content, so you don't have to keep asking your opponent to reread a card that you're unfamiliar with a set of text that you're struggling to understand. You have it right there in front of you to read immediately. You're not jumping between a webcam program and a website to try to decipher what a card does, any of those kinds of things. So just having that ability to instantly read a card, look at what it does, those kinds of things, it just makes it pretty simple and easy to be able to um, navigate around maybe a deck you're not used to playing against, or if you're playing a deck you're not used to playing, it's the same thing where your opponent has the ability to see the cards and look at them up close, and they can tell you like, oh, hey, that thing you're trying to do, you're actually not really able to do that because the card says this or whatever. It's a lot easier to keep each other honest and catch any potential misplays because it's so easy to see all of the cards, to read the cards and all that fun stuff, whether they're on your side of the board or your opponent's, even if you're nowhere near each other physically. So yeah, there are definitely some advantages, and then also like, things like rolling dice without actually having to worry about the dice falling off the table, and then you got to figure out where they went, and turns out they're under your chair, but you didn't look there right away, so you spend 10 minutes trying to find a single die that you lost. Like that, nobody enjoys that. So there's a lot of those little things where you don't have to mess with counters, you don't have to physically wrangle your cards and shuffle them in your hands and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of those little annoyances go away when you're playing digitally. um, yeah, so I think those are the advantages that I think of when I think of playing with TTS.
Yep, and TTS also has the features like if you want to draw, you can like if you want to draw three. If you play this three of a kind and want to draw three, you just go on the deck, press three, and three cards come to your hand. Done. No, nothing you need to figure out there. You can use counters or dice for everything. You just press one to go to the one, two to go to the two, etc. For the dice, on the counters, there's a little plus and minus down here. Over here is a plethora of all the tokens you might need, and your pitch pile goes on the bottom of your deck. So when you're done with that, you can actually click this handy dandy little intern button here, and it picks it up, slides underneath, and we're good to go. And those are the main things you need to know for TTS. F also is flip, so if you don't want someone to see something in your hand, you want to arsenal it. Anything in your hand is not visible, and then just press F, drag it out, put it on the table, it's upside down in your arsenal. And that is it.
Yeah, and the more you play on a program like TTS, the quicker you learn like a bunch of the little shortcuts, things like G to when you select a group of cards, you press G and it groups them all together into one pile. Lots of different weird things like that where you'll over time, the more that you do it, the easier a lot of those little things become because you just get used to what the buttons mean and how to make it work and what the shortcuts are. But yeah, it's a good program. Like I said, I think the biggest strengths are just for new players being able to test things out before committing to purchasing cards that as a new player you might struggle to afford some of the cards that cost 50, 60, $100 or whatever, or potentially more depending on what you're playing. And then also like I said, when you're testing for a big event and you want to try out as many different things as possible, that flexibility is helpful there as well. So those would be the situations where I personally would want to have TTS at my disposal.
Yeah, and that's that. That's Tabletop Simulator. The feature I like the most, you can hold tab down and then create a line, or you can actually hold tab and click something and you're going to put arrows. So if you have an opponent that's not talking, you can be like, if you're trying to get their attention, be like, hey, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Or if you really want to, you can press enter. That brings up a text box and then you can type things to them. But you can't see that because I have a picture up over that. So, yep, that's it. That's Tabletop Simulator. Anything on with this? It is $20 on Steam typically. You can typically find it on sale for like $10, maybe even cheaper, depending on the sales going on. But
yeah, I think I got mine for $20, and I've seen people get it for 10. So yeah, it's usually available and it's relatively inexpensive. And like I said, it's a lot easier to spend the $10-$20. The other great thing about TTS is you spend the $10-$20 because you want to use it to learn Flesh and Blood without having to buy all the cards. Well, now you also have it so that you can play, Magic the Gathering with your friends. You can, get a commander pod going with buddies that don't live in your hometown. You can play tons and tons of games. I have a buddy who likes the game Gloomvale, and so we play that sometimes. And there's just so many different things that you can do with TTS that having it for Flesh and Blood and similar games is great. But you also then have it at your disposal for countless other uses as well.
the Steam Workshop is plentiful with mods for
Yes,
board games. So if there's a game
absolutely.
that exists, you can probably find it and find a mod for it.
Yeah.
All right, that's TTS, and on to the last thing. All right, everyone, now we're going to talk about the last way that most people play online. This is getting to be more and more popular. I'll be honest, it's my least favorite, but it does have some good things going for it. I really just like webcam. That's just always having the cards feels good, but this gives you all the priority windows. It doesn't let mistakes in the game happen so much, so it's kind of bad for practicing for a big event because you definitely kind of want to have some leeway to catch some things, but at the same time it's very good for trying to learn the game and learn priority windows and everything in that. So it does definitely have some merits, and it's earned a good spot in the community. So this is Talishar. I believe this was previously known as Flesh and Blood Online. I believe so. I could be wrong on that. But it's set up pretty simple. This is the main page. Click your deck link the same way you put in something for TTS. It's the same export button. Game number. I'm just going to put a bunch of numbers. It's going to say CC, and I'm going to say private, and I create the game. From here, there's actually this little copy invite link. So what I'm going to do is just make sure to copy that. Then I'm going to send it over here to Ogar so he can join. So automatically when someone joins in, I'm going to turn my video off here so you guys can see the full picture. It gave a little ding then when Ogar joined, so you guys know that he's in here. I have a second player. It automatically does a dice roll, decides who will go first. So player 2 1. So Ogar gets to choose. He chooses that he will go first. Before this match starts, I see, okay, so he's going first. It's a Rune Blade. Do I want some AB? I have AB1. Do I want AB2? Bam. Okay, so I click which equipment I want. I can go right here to my sideboard. Anything that is highlighted is good to go. Anything not highlighted is not in the game currently. Once I'm ready to go, I can click start. It takes you to this page just like this. There's a little menu on the right side that you'll see, like this is the step, this is main phase, and this moves to attack, defense, and then the reaction phase, and then the end phase. It has a little text here of everything that is going on the right side. Right now it just says that we've connected. So we'll go ahead and Ogar, you can start your turn. You'll notice that there is automatically a tunic counter here, so automatically does that. So he played a Tome of the Arknight. He pitched a Tome of Harvest for it. So you can see here he has 2 resources floating. Click it to see your opponent's pitch zone. So I can click that and I can see everything in his pitch zone. Same thing if he has a discard or banish zone, I can click that and see what's available there. Any action that he does has a response window that shows up, just like you would have in a real game, but typically you don't go through all these. You don't typically say them, but it's good to acknowledge them, and it's good, especially if you're playing against someone who has instants. It's always good to know that there is a response window, and to kind of take the game at a spot where you can respond to anything. So he played something. I'm going to pass. I'm not going to play an instant in response to that. So I just click space. He did a Nimblism is revealed. Was it just 2 Nimblisms?
Yeah, looks like it was 2 Nimblisms, so yeah. I didn't get anything.
Wah, wah. All right, so he's back on the train. He has 1 action point because that has go again, so he uses the Grasp of Arknight. I have a chance to respond to it. I pass on that response. And he's going to attack me with Swarming. I'm going to pitch. I'm going to prevent 1 of the Arcane. I'm going to pitch that. Prevent 1 Arcane. And then after I do that, I'm going to pass. I'm then going to not block, so I'm going to pass again. So he has a spot to choose a reaction, and I have a spot to choose a reaction. I do not react to this, so I'm going to pass priority, and then that resolves. You can see over here my life total. I'm at 37 now to his 40. He's coming in with a Rosetta Thorn. I have a spot to choose an instant. Oh, he has a spot to choose an instant, actually. So this comes to me. I'm going to pass on resolving it. And then after he chooses to go into the reactions, he's attacking. So I choose an instant to resolve. Lexi has a lot of triggers on this game. So I apologize on that. So Rosetta Thorn damage, total 2. I'm going to block out 2 of it. Then I'm going to go ahead and let's block 2 of it. And then I'll pass. So just click on the card I want. So I'm going to pass the reactions. So you can see this little diamond in the right-hand side. It's Rosetta. He's in the attack phase. Sorry, he's moved to the end phase. So right now I can choose an instant. So I choose the bow. Choose a card to pitch for the bow. And then I can respond to my bow. So I choose not to respond to my bow. Now he has a spot to respond to my instant of loading the bow. Choose a card from hand, and I choose what mode to give it, and then that instant resolves, and I'm going to pass. And then This goes back to intern. I choose what card I want in the bottom of the pitch zone first. I'm going to choose that one, and then the other one is placed accordingly. That is how to work on defense. For attack, if you're going to have this tunic that counts up automatically, just like Voltaire, you'll have a spot to reply with an instant on the tunic for every action that's there. Voltaire gives me a spot because I can reply with Voltaire as an instant. So just be prepared that does happen. So first thing I'm going to do, going through this, I'm going to activate Heart of Ice. So choose a card to pitch for it. Bam. Then I'm going to, before Heart of Ice resolves, I'm going to play an instant. So I'm going to click on Voltaire. And I'm going to I'm going to pass. So I don't play an instant in response to Voltaire. Now I load an endless arrow. Give it a go again. So now I have an instant down there. Or, sorry, I have an arrow down there. Lot to keep track of. Lot to talk about. So I can choose to respond to that. I'm still passing. Was back to the Heart of Ice. Now we're back on the action phase. If I was using Lexi's ability, I would click on Lexi to flip one of these over, but they're both flipped up. So I'm going to click on the Arsenal card to play it. The Rain Razors is what I just gave go again. So now that I've played it, I have a chance to respond with an instant. I don't. My opponent now has a chance to respond with an instant. And then it will move to blocks.
We're already in blocks.
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of triggers. I'm sorry about that. He's going to block 3 and 6. All right. That has go again. So now that he's done that, once he passes the block step, I'm going to go ahead. I can choose a reaction. I'm going to Rain Razors it, which will do absolutely nothing. Just to play something in reaction step. I did that. Now I'm choosing a reaction again. I can load as an instant in the reaction phase because I have that priority. I can use Snapdragons, but I'm just going to pass. This goes back to the attack step. That attack has resolved. And then I fire a Bolton shot. And then I can respond with an instant. I will not. So I just keep passing priority. Everything that it has happened goes right over here. And you just keep going like that. So we're going to pretend that let's just choose a card to reload. Let's say I reloaded that card. Oh wait, I didn't want to reload that card. I can go up to this little menu in the top right, and there is an undo button. So you can undo an action, or you can start at the previous turn. Those are the main features of Talishar and how to use it. It can feel a little clunky, especially if you have a hero that has instance they can reply to anything. So if you have a tunic that's online, Voltaire is online, so you have tons of priority windows that can pop up with Lexi. Those are just something to keep track of, and it can kind of be a bit encumbersome, but it does teach you how to use those priority windows appropriately. Ogar, anything you think about this?
Yeah, I just think that it seems like a really good tool for someone learning the game. It kind of has the advantages that I was talking about with TTS, where you can build a deck either on Fabrary or on fabdb.net, and then you would be able to make adjustments to it between games without buying or finding cards in your binders or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. So just having that flexibility is nice. And then also as a new player, this is a tool that's going to allow you to learn how the turns are structured, where priority happens, when you can do things. I have noticed, I'm a level 1 judge, and I notice a lot of times some of the biggest confusions that I run into with people asking me questions about how the game of Flesh and Blood works is people just not understanding how priority works in the game, when you have opportunities to play what, and how any of that what can be responded to, what can't, when the text on a card takes effect, all those kinds of things. So having a tool like this when you're learning the game is probably going to be valuable because it forces you to walk through each of those steps of declaring and paying for and playing a card. Like all of those things happen in a very rigid, ordered way that you're not really going to see when if you're a new player and you go to your local armory and you sit down and watch two really experienced players. They're not going to be calling out every time there was a window where one of them could have played an instant, right? Because they just know the game well enough and they understand their own deck and their opponent's deck well enough that they just know when they need to worry about priorities, passing back and forth, and instants being declared, and when they don't. And so this is a tool where it's going to force you to gain an understanding of what those windows are, when they're important, and I can see that being really helpful. The other thing that I've seen with Talishar.net that a lot of people are getting use out of is the fact that you can, if you're using Fabrary, which is another, kind of like FabDB, it's another site you can go to build decks on. You can build a deck on Fabrary, use that deck in Talishar, and because Fabrary and Talishar are connected, I believe they're made by the same people. There's a lot of data that you can get after the fact. So say you play 10 games, you can go then into your deck in Fabrary, as long as you're using that link and that exact deck, for those 10 games, you can go into Fabrary and see which cards did you see, how many games did you see those cards, what did you do with those cards, did you block with them, did you play them, did you pitch them, did you arsenal them, all of these different things where you can see how you're playing your deck, what you're doing with the different cards, and that might help you understand, like, well, I put this certain card in my deck because I really thought that it was going to be useful and I was going to play it every time, but now I notice that I've played 15 games with this card in my deck and I've only ever blocked with it or pitched it. Maybe it's not really the best use of that spot in the deck. Maybe there's something I can put in that'll be a little bit more valuable that I would want to play more often. And so you can find out those kinds of things to tweak and optimize your deck, as opposed to just kind of trying to do it by memory or take physical notes. So there are some positive things that you can do with this tool, whether you're a new player or an experienced player. I would just say, for my personal preferences, I would pretty much always rather play over webcam than play with either TTS or Talishar. And if I had to rank the three of them, which I know you didn't ask me to do, but if I had to rank the three of them, I would say webcam is my number one preference. Then second would be Tabletop Simulator, and then the bottom rank of the three would be Talishar.net. But I know other people have a very different opinion and consider Talishar.net to be the best thing that's happened to the game in quite some time, and they find it to be a tool that they don't ever want to lose and use more than anything else. So, yeah, definitely different things work for different people, and this is a tool that may work for you.
Yeah, this is like
the story of a girl.
Oh dear, this coming off. Oh man, I can't even. No. All right, we're done. That's it. We're calling it. That was it. That's a video. I just killed it. No. I was gonna say that, like, the three clients definitely, they have a different offering, and they each have their own. They each bring their own thing to the table. Like if I was gonna play something that if I played a Frostlock and my opponent responded with a Oasis Respite, Frostlock says on it that the cards and abilities cost an opposing hero additional resources gain. Well, then I'm going to say, oh, you can't, because this has to resolve before you can play Oasis Respite on it. And then they're like, well, no, because I'm responding to that, so that's in there. And then we're both going to sit there and be like, okay, we're going to Google, or we're going to Discord, or we're going to a judge. Hey, judge, what's the proper answer here? And on Talishar, you don't need to do that.
Yeah. Yep. A tool like Talishar could help, when a new character comes out, for example, Dromai. A lot of people really struggled knowing, when do I need to have an Ash before I declare playing a card? What cards can I play that require Ash but don't need an Ash before the card is played. There's a lot of those little nuances that can be tough to navigate at first, but with a tool like Talishar, if it's got everything laid out for you, it's never going to allow you to make that illegal play. And then as you play more and more games, you're going to notice like, oh, I can't do this in this situation, but in this situation I can do it. And so then when you do build the deck physically and go to your local armory or go to a ProQuest or Battle Hardened or Road to Nationals or a Worlds tournament or whatever, you're going to already have that those reps and that knowledge of, I know that I need to have an Ash already in play before I play this card, but I know that I can play this other card without any Ash in play and just rely on the Ash that's generated when I pitch a red to pay for it. So those are the types of things that Talishar can help you with. Obviously, that's just one example, but if you're learning how to play Kano, Talishar probably would be a good resource because it'll help you organize how your turn is going to be structured, when you want to respond to what, and all those types of things, what your priority windows are. But the other side of that coin is just, if you only have ever played your deck on Talishar and then you build it and you bring it to a big event, you might struggle a little bit knowing like it's going to feel different looking at the cards in your hand. It's going to feel different knowing that you have to physically remember to tick up the counter on Tunic every turn because the game is going to do it for you. And you can't go 3 turns in a national tournament. You can't go 3 turns and say, well, I'm going to use my Tunic, even though you never put a counter on it any of those 3 turns. Your opponent's not going to allow you to do that. And if you're only playing on Talishar where the game does it for you, you're not going to get in that habit of making sure to play cleanly. So I would say, understand the benefits, the pros and the cons of each of the tools available to you, and make sure that you're using them accordingly. If Talishar offers you a lot of benefits, great, utilize it for those benefits, but also make sure that you understand what the downfalls are and what shortcomings you might be creating for yourself, and then try to do everything you can to rectify that and go the other way by utilizing other tools that are available to kind of fill in those gaps.
Yeah, and that's all we have for today. That is playing online. That's using Talishar, Webcam, and TTS as a bonus. Yeah, if you guys are a Patreon to the Wraith Times, it also interacts with the FabDG website, so you can get on here and do fun things. Even with TTS, they have some advanced features in here. So you can even change your card back, for example. But yeah, so there's a plug. Get a subscription to the Wraith Times. But yeah, that's it. That's all we're doing today. So go play online, go play in person, and hope you guys are having fun.